Terry Malkovich, Council Liaison.
Our newest member,
Brandy Johns.
our Community Development Committee. On Zoom, we have Lori Thomas, Chloe Cleveland, our secretary, should be taking notes, and then Daniel Jensen with Rise Engineering. I think that's everybody for now.
And you can mention that he's.
Oh yes, and our guest, Bertie, we want to thank you for coming here. State representatives. And so we invited him to come and hear some of the results of this survey that we did in our community that will be giving suggestions to our city council on what resident feedback is and then other data and things that Sunrise put together for us on helping the city council be informed as they build out the plan and such. So, and a strategic plan for our city. So it's just for his information as, again, a representative of our area and city. You know, what challenges we're seeing, what citizens are saying, and things like that. Appreciate him. Very good. Okay. Real quick, I want to motion to approve our minutes from our previous meeting that was held on October 22nd, 2024.
There, but I said second it.
I think also, Chloe, are you on?
I'm on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so I have a really hard time hearing you all. Like the audio is super quiet. And I have.
Having that as well?
Yes, Lori typed in the chat. She said yes.
It's just
hard to
me.
hear.
Is it me? Because I didn't turn on my mic. Can you hear me better now?
Oh, now I can hear you wonderful, but I couldn't hear.
Sorry, that was my bad. Okay, I won't do the roll call. I won't do the roll call over again, but I will do the approval of the minutes. So I motion to approve our minutes from our previous meeting held on October 22nd, 2024. Brandy did a second, but I also know that Chloe, you also saw those meeting minutes.
Yes.
If you want to motion as well. Or I think we're good if Brandy wants to do it.
I think you're good. I would have volunteered, but I couldn't hear you.
Okay, great. Well, if you can note that would be great. Okay, next item.
Vote.
We have to vote.
Oh.
Yeah.
Everybody.
All in favor.
All in favor. Vote to approve our minutes.
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me on track. Okay, next item on our agenda, survey update and report from Sunrise Engineering. We have, again, like I mentioned before, but you couldn't hear me. I'm sorry, Daniel Jensen here, Sunrise Engineering, to share with us those survey results.
Daniel is the project manager for the two of you who are new.
Great.
Perfect. So am I good to start talking?
Go ahead.
Okay. So a little bit of background. We started this survey back in August and September. Well, it went live toward the beginning of September. It was live for about 2 months and closed last week. All in all, we had 213 responses. We tried to get as many as we could. We had it posted multiple times on social media, on the project website, on the city's website. I attended the Woodland Hills Days in September and passed out QR codes. I had a A-frame sign out there with the giant QR code that people could scan that would take them to the survey. Then we created these business cards that, we also had QR codes at the mailboxes for a while, and I don't know if they stayed there for the entire 2 months, but they were there for quite a while. And then I think Kirsten took business cards out to many of the homes. I don't know if she single-handedly went to every house in the city or.
I was not able to do that, but I did hit quite a few streets and spent hours going door to door.
And we posted it in the city newsletter as well as multiple times on social media.
Yep.
And I think we posted it in some of the ecclesiastical newsletters.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The cards handed out at the breakfast.
Yeah.
The community breakfast. So.
And I got maybe a handful on the Halloween night. It was kind of hard because people were focused on their families and I didn't want to interrupt them.
Yeah.
But
For some
But
reason.
213 is about half of the households.
Yes,
That's about 50% of the household. So that's a pretty good
Yes.
survey return.
that's right. So I was very, I would say I was happy to see that level of response. I think that's uh kind of what I was anticipating on the upper end. Like that was the goal. I think we achieved a good response rate. So I'm happy with that. And so if it's all right, should I just share my screen and we can walk through some of the results?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's see if I'm able to do that. Here we go. Okay, do you see my screen right now?
No.
It's probably
No.
not computer. Want me to check?
Yeah.
Or I think sometimes she'll turn it on.
Let me try this again.
Yeah. We might
There
have
we
to
go.
come and do a screen share over
No,
here.
not yet.
Oh, now we're seeing something.
Daniel has started screen share. There we are. It's a little small for us, but
Yeah, so why don't I just zoom in significantly?
okay. And you
Maybe-
can send this to the committee as well, so they can go over it, right?
Yes, yeah. So after the meeting, I'll send, I've been organizing it into a more digestible format because right now with the raw data, some of it's not as clear. So I have to go and create some of the charts independently, but for the most part, it's already in a format that's easy to follow and understand. So some of these first questions were just generic questions about Woodland Hills. For example, is Woodland Hills a great place to live? And the overall feeling toward the community is quite positive. So that was good to see. We don't always see that. So that is positive. That is something. And Woodland Hills is a great place to raise a family. And again, overwhelmingly, people agree that this is a good place to raise a family. In terms of optimism toward the future, I would say the community is pretty optimistic. There's a little bit of hesitancy, I think, just guessing based off the data, which you'll see. There's concern about the town changing as growth occurs. Some concern that they're going to have commercial pushed on them when they don't want commercial. Some concern that they want commercial and they're not going to get it. There are a lot of varying opinions that we will get to, and I think that drives some trepidation here, but overall, still quite positive. What do you like most about living in Woodland Hills? The natural beauty was off the charts. When you go through the individual comments, most of them relate to the natural environment, the beauty, the wildlife, the access to the trails, the recreational opportunities. That's what most people chose to report as what they liked about the most. You see the small town rural environments also very high, as well as safety and low crime. Not as many family ties or personal ties. So I think there are a lot of transplants to Woodland Hills, but they transplant for the right reasons, it looks like. They love the natural environment. Biggest challenges, housing costs, natural hazards. A lot of people wrote about concerns about natural fires and water, like mudslides or those type of concerns. Some people mentioned proximity to services and jobs, although a lot of people also said we like the fact that we don't have the traffic and that we can leave when we want it, and then we can come back to a quiet place where we don't have that. And I think that was pretty anticipated. I don't think there are any surprises there. Availability to quality housing for different ages and family demographics. I think it's important to note that while this isn't the biggest concern of the community, it is still a top concern for about a quarter of the population. So 1 in 10 respondents put this as their top concern, where about half of the respondents, it seems like they already own their homes, they're already financially secure, they're not worried about new housing opportunities or affordable housing or that sort of thing. But that's not true for every resident. Same with housing affordability. I mean, you see that right there, that for about a third of the residents, housing affordability is quite important. But again, for nearly half the residents, it's not. So that data came through that people were, for lack of a better sense, kind of upset that some people are concerned about affordable housing, but clearly there are residents who need it and are searching for it. Proximity to senior living and care centers, again, for most people, not a big concern, but there's a good contingency, small contingency, who have that as a concern. Availability of commercial, not as big of a concern. A lot of the comments said we are happy to continue driving toward it or for it, but there were also several people, even in the comment section, saying this was a top concern. They want to see a gas station, or they want to see some sort of retail locally so they don't have to drive all the time. So there was a mix of opinions. Then connection to nature and outdoors, again, through the roof. This is what people love. This is why they're in Woodland Hills, and we will continue to see that throughout here. Beautification of the city is important. There were several comments about code enforcement, wanting to see more code enforcement or wanting to understand how code enforcement works. We'll get to some of those questions, but that was also in the comment section as I try to comb through that data to see what people were writing about on the open-ended questions. Stewardship with the natural environment, again, very popular. People love the beauty that surrounds them in Woodland Hills. So it was good to see that there are things people agree on, and there were many things they didn't. Future water availability, a top concern. So 5 means that they strongly agree. 1 means they disagree, or not a concern in this case. So strongly agree that that's a concern. What actions have people taken? Very few people said that they hadn't taken any action toward water conservation. So most people reported taking some type of action. Reducing landscaping through some sort of drip system or changing how they do watering for their landscaping was the top response. We do have people who've replaced their landscaping with water-wise, drought-tolerant, xeriscape, some sort of landscaping that's less demanding on water. Also just mindfulness in how they conduct their household and what appliances they have. We see that a lot of people said that is something that they do. So that was good to see. As the city grows, it's important to maintain the same level of service that's to be expected. And I feel like the city government has adequate facilities to meet my needs. Most people said yes. So this was good to see that we're starting from a baseline that is meeting people's needs. Right here, I think we would see that if people felt like the status quo was insufficient, we'd see more responses on the left, on the 1 and 2 range, which I see in other communities where they don't feel this way. So this shows that Woodland Hills is largely doing a really good job. I'd have to comb through this data more to see what facilities and staffing positions they would like. This was the one I didn't quite make it through in time. But I did really like this one right here to clone Jody. So there you go. Then feeling connected to the community, largely positive. There were some response here. I did see a few people saying if you're not LDS, it's harder to meet people or feel connected. I did see a lot of people though saying the city does a good job reaching out, and the city events are really helpful for getting to know the neighbors and for being involved. I also saw a lot of people saying that they would like to be more involved. I think that's one of the next, it's the next question. So this was interesting. You can see people feel connected. And then when you say, would you like to be more involved? It's really evenly split, right? You don't see a response quite like that very often. And in some of the comments, there were comments saying, I would love to be more involved and learn how to run for council. I don't know how to do that. I would like more resources, or I don't know how to talk to these people. And other people saying that there's too much information. So I think all in all, that means there's a pretty good balance. Then how important are the following community events were popular? And we're going to ask later about the 2 main events specifically. but knowing and trusting my neighbors, that was very important to people. And then having community places to gather was important. And then receiving communication from the city. So you can see that people like that communication. And I think in general, the city's been doing a pretty good job. The responses were largely positive, that the newsletters, the posting on social media and all that has helped people feel like they know what's going on. How do you currently follow what's going on? So the Facebook groups, both, I don't remember if there's one that's official and one that's just a resident one, or if they're both just resident created, but whatever they are, the Facebook groups are,
One is official and one is resident.
one's
Well,
resident.
and there's several that are resident,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So a lot of people do get their information from those Facebook groups. And so it's important to continue reaching out that way. The emails, the newsletters, the website are also viewed quite frequently. Also just neighbors sharing information on social media, not through any of those groups. Some of the old school folks, I guess, are still around. I don't know where people get information from in the newspaper, if that's the Daily Herald or the Payson Chronicle or what. I don't know what else is out there, but that was it.
last time we've been in there, maybe 6 years ago during the fires.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm content with my current access to community information, largely positive, right? Handful of people saying they want more information, but most people saying they get the information they need. And then what community services would they find helpful? Most of these, there were a significant amount of people who said they would find them helpful. So that was good to see some robust support for various actions. So we can dissect these more at another time as we look at the goals and how to go about them. But it does look like each of them probably have some worthwhile goals to support them. So chipper days, is that helpful? Should it continue? Yes. Pretty overwhelming yes. What community services or activities would you use? Service days, youth events. I saw in the comments a couple people saying a lot of the service days are organized through the church, and it would be nice if we had more organized projects through the city to reach out, especially to people who need the service and people who want to give the service who don't participate in church. And then activities for seniors, there's some support there, but a lot of people did like the idea of service days. Then is there a specific community activity? I didn't see anything jump off the charts on this one, but I'll organize it to break down how many responses for each type of idea there was. But it's all over the board. I saw a few people saying like pickleball events if there are pickleball courts. But for the most part, it was like 42 different ideas. So nothing that had some nothing that had much momentum to it. Then with Woodland Hills Days, so Woodland Hills Days has a lot of support. That's an important part of our community. Most everyone was saying yes, or at least they're neutral to it. They feel informed and they feel invited, they attend. The responses here were overwhelmingly positive in terms of the suggestions and feedback. Most people just like it. There's just a lot of comments saying it's very valuable, thank you, that sort of thing. Well, then this one says it's in decline, but you get the idea. Most of it's been really positive. Maple Fest, and I actually don't recall, is Maple Fest privately operated and supported by the city, right? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And the comments were in line with that, where some people felt like it was more of a city event where everyone's invited, whether or not it's privately operated, but something that's really open to the public. And others felt like it was more private and they didn't feel like they were as invited to it. I don't know if that is a concern. I don't know the goals of that event. But for the most part, things are very positive. People liked it. For the most part, people feel informed. But I did see in the comments this 20% that spoke up a little bit, saying, I don't know how invited I feel to that one. But most of it, I mean, you see, it's wonderful, so much fun, more syrup, please, right? So most people are very supportive, and then of course we have cancel it. So a variety. So I'm satisfied with current recreational opportunities. This one's interesting to see. For the most part, yes, but you can see that there's desire for more, and the comments bear that out. Trails, 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 trails. That is the theme from this survey. In the open-ended responses, it's almost as if a question could be about an unrelated thing, and people would still talk about trails. That's what people really seem to want and wanted to talk about. So I would like additional trails. So you can see right here that trails are popular, or maybe they're just very vocal. I mean, that's a 62% response saying that they
Nice.
want it.
Did we have a question about how to acquire the land for the trails? Because that's one of our main things is you'd have to buy easements, etc. And that's why the city doesn't have more trails, is it wasn't put in the original development agreements.
Right.
So even though a lot of people want them, we're just trying to figure out how to pay for them.
Right. I don't know if we have a great question. A question along the lines of, would you support the city using general funds to purchase trail easements? A question like that?
Yeah, or a wrap tax or something,
Or a wrap tax? Yeah. Does the city currently have a wrap tax is on
No,
sale
we don't
tax,
have
right?
anything.
Right.
We
And
don't
with
have anything that would be dedicated to trails other than just what we put in the budget for the park.
right. And yeah, I think we talked about that, but there wasn't enough, since there's not a wrap tax and there's not a lot of sales tax that would generate enough revenue to purchase it anyway. Anyway, we'll go through here, but yeah, I don't know that there's a question that's directly in line with that. So I would like our local trails to connect into the regional trail networks. Yes, there's a lot of trail users there. I'd like a trail along Woodland Hills Drive. This question and the next one, the Woodland Hills Drive question
Mhm.
received, I would say, the most variety of responses. There wasn't really a much guidance from the public. There were a lot of opinions, but I can't say that whether it's a trail or a sidewalk, paved or unpaved, or no trail at all, or no sidewalk at all. There were a lot of opinions, which you can see that right here. So which of the following would you prefer? Nothing, keep as is a full third. Again, 1/3 with paved, and then unpaved 10%, and unpaved 20%, and sidewalk 10%. So quite a plurality.
I
And
think some of those people who live on Woodland Hills Drive were probably the number ones. Because that would go in their front yard. So they're probably a little bit more hesitant of it because again, we don't have the easements. We just received a grant for a trail study. So we're going to be doing that soon, a trail study along Woodland Hills Drive to see what the feasibility is of it.
okay. Yeah.
But this will be
Comment-
helpful to that committee.
Yeah, I hope so. And in the comments, what I saw, there are many people saying we need to have some sort of trail. I live there, or my kids have no place to walk. It's dangerous. They have to walk on the road. There's more traffic now on Woodland Hills Drive, and it's dangerous to walk on the road, or I have to go on and off the road, or whatever. And so there's this contingency that's saying, from a public safety standpoint, from a quality of life standpoint for kids, I want it to occur. Then there's also a contingency saying, I'm tired of the cost. I moved here because we don't have the infrastructure and I don't want to be paying for it. so that side was also vocal. Some people saying it needs to be unpaved, otherwise it's too steep, and it would encourage people to ride their bike, or kids ride their bike, and it'd be dangerous. Or we got all sorts of opinions. We had opinions on how to do the engineering. We had opinions on how it would impact water runoff. We had lots of engineers taking the survey, apparently. What additional recreational opportunities would you like? Let's see. I went through this one. Yeah, so trails was number one. 12 of these 62 responses were about trails. 9 were about mountain biking. I didn't ask many, or I don't think there was any mountain biking specific question, but there were 9 people who said mountain biking is what they wanted, either a mountain biking course or just a mountain biking trail, or a multi-use path that's conducive to mountain biking. So there were a variety of responses within those 9. Winter sports, a couple mentioned cross-country skiing, one mentioned snowshoeing, kind of threw that in the category. Pickleball, so pickleball and trails and mountain biking were the top 3. If I can move this. Then, oops. What else do we have here? Which amenities? Pickleball. So when we specifically asked about amenities, we asked about these ones and then open-ended. And pickleball was the top one, along with improving the restroom and water facilities. I thought soccer. Oh yeah, okay, soccer right there, community garden. But yeah, really pickleball and just the facilities at the park were
Hard problem with the soccer fields that we used to have that we put in is people would drive in there with their big trucks in the winter and do wheelie or whatever you call them, snow,
behind them. Pull
yeah,
the
and
sleds.
go
Donut.
Yeah.
doing turning around in the snow and ruining the lawn and ruining all the water pipes underneath and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we took them all out.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, that will do it. Okay, so how do you best feel about sidewalks? Again, a lot of different responses here, and you see 207 responses, and a lot of people put in their own, but about half saying keep it as it is, and the other half having some combination of they really like sidewalks, they'd want sidewalks along Woodland Hills Drive, but nowhere else. But all in all, you have about half saying keep as is, half saying they want some sort of sidewalk system. So apologies that the data wasn't more definitive. Generally speaking, roads are well maintained, and that had plurality. Some vocal residents feel they are not well maintained. I will say that from the comment section. But for the most part, I would say the response was pretty positive. Code enforcement was an interesting one. There were a lot of comments in the comment section about code enforcement, wanting to see it be more addressed and a little bit more robust, and just some feelings about it being not as fair or as impartial as they'd like. I don't know background, I don't know who's commenting, but there were probably 10 or so comments that I saw like that, which seemed a little high compared to some of the other issues. Again, I don't know if these are the same 10 people complaining on everything, or if it represents a broader concern. So I'm confident I know how to commit or how to submit a code enforcement violation, understand the enforcement process. Well, right there we see that 50% of the residents say no. So that may be something we'll want to address in the strategic plan to make sure that there is a more public campaign on how the code enforcement process works, what type of things are code violations, what the city does about it, whatnot. Maybe some more proactive transparency there. With the dark sky, people felt like the dark sky was important. It was one of the things they like about living in Woodland Hills. When it comes to preserving it, they want to see it preserved. When it comes to enforcing it, there is a little bit more of a mixed opinion. So this question is, would you support the city exploring being a dark sky community? Dark sky policies, there's an explanation that it still allows lights that are useful and purposeful, but the intention is to curtail excessive lighting. The majority say yes, they would support it. There is this group here, about a fifth of the population saying no, or that they have concerns with it. 13-14% here strongly oppose it. But there is also a lot of support. So some mixed opinions. I would say, looking at this data, it seems like if the city wanted to move forward with it, it would take a little bit of work to have some listening sessions to get people to understand what it would entail to get on board, because there aren't, I would say largely the support is positive, but there would be some concerns to work through. So would you support outdoor lighting requirements for new light fixtures? And I was kind of surprised by this. 22% of people said yes, even though the question's about new light fixtures. If I'm a resident and the requirements don't apply to me, but they apply to anything new, I think I would support it. And what is that? Just over 50% do. But again, concerns with regulation, I think, just generally. Star parties, about half the population said that they would be interested in attending star parties if that was a thing. I know Utah Valley Astronomy Club is active, and they like to do star parties in various spots. And so I can imagine that the park the park in town could be a good spot. And there might be a lot of local ambassadors for that. I would like outside lights to turn off at a certain time. Most people said yes. Only 17% said no. Most people, well, maybe not most, but the largest of the categories is to encourage a lights off time, but not have it be part of a regulatory, not have a regulatory component, right? So when you combine that with the no restrictions, a little bit more than half say they don't want any restriction, and what's that, maybe 40% would like it to be a formal restriction with various hours. Not many saying midnight, most of them saying sometime around that 10 or 11 p.m. hour. If you could add one thing to the city, what would that be? And let's see, I went through this data, and
Lower taxes, community pool, the things that would give us lower taxes, like adding a community pool or pickleball courts.
that's right.
Give me this, but don't charge me.
If you can add one thing to the city,
Trails.
I thought I synthesized this data. Oh, here we go. If you can add one thing to the city, what would it be? Trails. So trails was number one. Sidewalks was number two. There was some feedback in here that I liked, and that's that there's a contingency of people who complain and they may feel ostracized. And so one thing to add is, like, what about something like listening sessions with the council, where residents can come in and just talk through their concerns or whatnot to help people feel understood. Again, I don't know the nature of things here, but I have seen other communities do that, where the mayor or council individuals have done like meet and greet listening sessions, or like fireside chat type situations. And that's been helpful for residents to feel like they can come and talk about their concerns and feel listened to. And sometimes it helps them get more accurate information. So if Woodland Hills feels like that's a concern, that may be something in our strategic plan to address more proactively, to maybe dispel some of the misinformation that's out there. Because from the responses, it did seem like some of the angst stems from some misinformation, in my limited opinion. Relating to business development in Woodland Hills, I'd rather pay higher property tax than have commercial. This data was kind of interesting. About half the people were saying they would not rather pay higher tax and they would rather have commercial to keep their tax rates low. There is this adamant portion here that says, even if I pay higher property tax, I do not want business. And this contingency here was quite vocal in the comments. Thinking specifically about the options for the lower fields, there were a lot of opinions here. It's a good location for retail and business. More people said they strongly agree than strongly disagree. The trend was toward it is a good location. Again, the people who oppose, which is 36% of the city, had strong opinions that that's not why they moved to Woodland Hills and they don't want to see it. Again, small local business, about the same. More people support than oppose, but there are a lot of people who oppose. It's a good location for a limited mixed use Main Street style development. Pretty similar numbers, a little bit more opposed than the other options. But again, we're pretty split. A lot of strong opinions. Then if Woodland Hills were to allow a business, what would be your biggest concern?
Look at all those. That
Yeah.
So-
row.
Opinions in the-
30% said they have no concerns. And then this section right here, I went through that data and let's see, it was. Oh, I don't have it written out. It's all the things you'd anticipate. The signs, like people didn't want really bright signs. They didn't want the noise, even though noise was one of these. But yeah, I mean, just all over the place. So a lot of concerns, people felt like they wanted to state their specific concern, but only a third said no concerns. So I mean, it kind of gives you an idea of where we're meeting people on planning for that area. Thinking about other residential land uses, is there a place for townhomes? I realized after this got sent out that this question's ambiguous. Luckily, we have a follow-up question because I don't know if this means that people are looking at the town and saying, is there currently a place for it or should there be a place for it? So that's unfortunate, and that's my error in writing that ambiguously. I would support a limited number of townhomes. So here's the follow-up question. As part of a single-family residential community on the lower fields, no. Some people said yes. That 20%, probably the same people who said that affordable housing is one of the top things for them. But by and large, not much support. There's a place in Woodland Hills for senior living, so I would support, and this data pretty much matches. So I would support senior living on the lower fields, and the trend line is toward no. But again, pretty split with the biggest being no. Specific amenities.
Were there any people that gave responses on why they didn't support any senior living? I mean, like a 55 and older community is what I'm thinking. Maybe they're thinking rest home. I don't know. But did they give any indication to you or comments on why? Because we've had quite a few people talk to us about it. So that's why.
Yeah, I
Right.
think with this question, they're probably thinking more of an assisted living center as opposed to 55 plus. Interestingly, in the comments section, I didn't see many people write about 55 plus communities. I feel like in other communities I've worked in, that's a common one to see is, hey, we need a 55 plus community or more 55 plus developments. I actually didn't see that in the data. I did see a few people in the comments saying we don't need senior housing. People already have their own homes, they don't need it. And if they need assisted living, they can go to Payson or Salem, where they have that, and we don't need that here. That's just maybe 2 or 3 comments.
Probably should have had the 55 and older on there now that I'm looking at that because yeah, when I read it again, I was like, oh, they don't want a rest home type facility, but we've had quite a few that have mentioned 55 and older, especially if one of the spouses dies. They don't want to move, but their house is too big.
Right.
They
Now,
want to live on the mountain.
right. And even we could break down that question further because the 55 plus community can be single family detached homes that are still pretty large, but maybe more ADA friendly where they're single level and they don't have,
Well, and
more.
on those lower fields where it's not, where there would be easier access, just driving on less snow, etc.
Right. Right. And so you have that type of 55 plus. You also have the 55 plus, like you see, well, in Payson, right off of um
By the
highway,
temple.
right off well, yeah, so the detached ones is by the temple in Payson. And then on the east side of Payson, you have the condominium units. They're not townhomes, but they're stacked, 4 stories, 55 plus. And that's not assisted living, that's 55 plus. So even then, you could have residents interpreting or visualizing it differently. So if we needed to really, or wanted to really dig into this, maybe at the public open house, we could do a visual survey where we put up different housing products, and people can say if with that product that they're seeing, how much they support that, and the picture would help us dissect a little bit more as to what type of housing unit would be amenable. So that's really good feedback. And we should do that at the public open house.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Are there any specific amenities? This was all over the board. Again, people mentioned, some pickleball, a handful of pickleballs, but mostly all over the board. I started writing, like keeping a tally of all the different ones, and it was incredibly broad. So there weren't a lot of duplicates. I could have like AI or something go organize that, but for the most part, they were one-off answers. I thought it was interesting. We had Airbnb should be allowed, and then like a handful above is short-term rentals should not be allowed. So, and then other comments and feedback to the city. Let's see, the most common answer here was just thanking the city for listening to the residents and doing the survey. Then we had a handful of people reiterating that they don't want commercial, a handful saying they want commercial, a handful saying they don't want multifamily housing. A good handful talking about noise and barking dogs. And a few in support of dark skies and loving the nature, and most everything else was a one-off, as in one idea and it wasn't repeated. Okay, then the demographics, pretty much every single person lives in Woodland Hills. One person does not. Good for them though, for taking all the time to answer a survey for a town they don't live in. Then age, kind of all over the board. It was interesting to watch this shift. I think it was
Okay.
a little bit younger when
Population, right? Which
Yeah.
makes me feel good that this is probably good data. I know there's been questions about, do people from outside the city take this and just say they're residents, but those demographics pretty well align with what we would expect. in the
Yeah,
city.
and when we started the survey, I would say it skewed a little bit younger. And that's because we got the first responses from the event from Woodland Hills Day. And over time, it's shifted to hit this point, which matches the demographics for the town, which is really good to see, as well as the income. Have to look a little bit closer. but you see a variety. And I think that somewhat closely approximates the household income for the city. Education, very highly educated community, is to be expected, and I shouldn't keep scrolling down. That's personal information for people who wanted to have follow-up. So that is the survey. Any questions about the survey while I have it up on the screen?
I don't have any.
And are we having this, this information presented at the council meeting in December?
That would be great. What date would that be? And we'll see if Daniel's available.
It is, because we only have one council meeting in December because of the holidays. So that would be on the 10th, although it appeared, Jody said that we had a full calendar. We're having Representative Burton and Senator McHale come on January 10th to talk with the council. Yeah, and then, so it could be that same night, because then if the council had questions to them on what was happening, that might maybe be good if you're available on January 10th.
Should
Yeah.
we find out?
I mean, it wouldn't be January 10th, it would be January 14th. She said
Oh,
January,
okay.
be January 14th,
Yeah.
legislative session.
And how does that line up with our timeline of this full project? What's kind of our next 2 steps moving forward?
Yeah, so just in terms of the time commitments we have right now, I am swamped with work until December 31st when the subdivision ordinance work ends here in the state of Utah. So I have about 30 communities I'm working with and updating their subdivision code, and that completely ends. Funding is closed December 31st. So after
That's
December
why
31st,
yeah.
my priority is my general plans that I'm working on, which mostly just you and another city. So in January, I will be dedicating a lot of time to the general plan update. So
So
then-
with that
yeah.
survey update, could you also provide the city and us council with these are our next steps moving forward?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe the written one pager of the survey with with all those graphics you showed us. And then, because you're right, that's why our December 10th is crowded, is we have to get that subdivision ordinance finalized, plus a few other items that are on the agenda. So if you can plan on January 14th, and we
Yep.
put you prior to the legislative
Update.
reports, updates, then that way, if the council had questions to our legislators about some of the things that are happening with them and what we've learned here,
Yeah.
because
affordable
the
housing
legislature,
and
as you
water.
know, Daniel, is going to probably have some land use ordinance legislation proposed.
Yep.
And that we need to keep on top of that. And as we update the general plan and as we do our strategic plan, we will have to adjust some of our plans according to the new state laws.
Yep.
But it is interesting to see those survey results.
Okay.
Yeah. And that works perfect. So January 14th, what time is council typically?
Our work session starts at 6 p.m.
Okay.
And
And is
that's
that-
when we would have you somewhere on there, probably
Okay.
towards if we have you towards the beginning, Kirsten can
I'll be there.
ask if you can be towards the beginning, and then we would have probably Representative Burton and Senator McHale right after. Oh,
I can't hear whoever's talking. Can we say that again?
oh, Jeff needs to have a.
Well, she's taking our.
Hey, Chloe Cleveland, Jeff Burton, Utah State Representative. What I said was the state legislatures had called a town hall meeting that same night at UVU Keller Building from 7.
Oh,
And so I'm gonna have to somehow deconflict that, Carrie.
So if we put you on after 7, do you think you guys could make it? Like we said, 7:30 for you guys? Because we'll probably have a lot of stuff on our agenda. Okay, so. Okay.
Hey, our plows are great.
Yeah.
Okay, so legislative,
That's what I got.
yeah. Legislative town hall at UVU from 6 to 7.
That's what they have, yeah.
Okay, and then if we had you close to 7:30, come up here, that would still work.
Mike and I would probably need to be that, so yeah, 7:30 at the here.
Okay. We'll just put you later on the agenda, but we'll put Daniel more towards the beginning.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for that report. That was
Do
really,
you have any questions?
yeah.
No, it's
Daniel?
the same thing that we see, we want more services.
Talking to the mic.
Yeah. My main takeaway from this is the more services, less tax. So you got there, Dan.
Is that turned on?
Hi, Daniel. Yeah, I got more services, less taxes. That's what I
Yeah.
got from the survey. All right.
Always.
And when you get old, we don't want you up here. Got that. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's strange because the majority of the population something. So I found that none of us want to get old. Old is ugly in America. So I got it.
Yeah, that's why I think it will be helpful for us to distinguish between
Assisted living or
assisted
50.
living
Yeah.
and just 55
I
and
wouldn't have
older
thought.
Very
55
different.
and older.
community, because I think that there are people who are then past that 64 to 80 that we have them here, and their neighbors are currently helping them in a lot of ways, but and some of our widows that would really like to still live here, but not necessarily
Mhm.
take care of an acre or two.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to that in January then. And then, unless there's differing opinions, I would say let's not meet in December.
Okay.
And plan to do a regular monthly meeting starting in January. If we could do the last Monday of every month, 5 p.m., similar to today. I'm
So the last Monday is sometimes the 5th and sometimes the 4th week. So just
I would
but
say the
just
fourth Monday
Okay.
of every month at 5 p.m. moving forward. I motion to approve that.
I second that.
Okay, so that'll be our regular meeting time
And
moving
vote on
forward
it?
in January. I will.
You'll
Oh,
have to
I'm
call
sorry.
for the vote.
I would like to extend the vote on that.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yay.
Okay. 4th Monday, 5
you're
p.m.
kidding.
standing meeting.
Okay, great. Okay.
Sure. Like to motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I second that.
Maybe I'll
Sorry.
turn off the-
Motion, I
Thank you. Oh, do we have to vote on that? Okay. Thank you all.
Tell me who made that motion.